Welcome to Tuesdays with Tom, a Procurious podcast series featuring exclusive insights from Tom Derry, CEO of the Institute for Supply Management. The topic of today's podcast is Transformers. Procurious founder Tanya Siri will discuss with Tom what digital transformation means for the profession, the exciting benefits and implications of robotic process automation, and how the Internet of Things is set to transform supply management. Over to you, Tanya.
Tom, we recently had a very well-read story on Procurious, and it was written by Bertrand Maltaverne, one of our contributors, and he spelled out the difference for us all on digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. And I know myself, I often get, the three confused. For you, what does digital transformation mean for our profession?
Well, I was thinking about this, Tanya, and you and I were talking recently about this topic, and we've been experiencing it for quite a while. If you stop and take a step back and look at the big picture, in the late 90s, we started doing reverse auctions and e-auctions, and not too long after that, dynamic discounting began to enter the equation, right, on those fintech platforms that have been around for a while, and C2FO and platforms like that. So we've been doing it, but then we've kind of hit sort of a pause, if you will, in that innovation wave, and it seems like we're on the brink of this next wave. And I think digitization means getting your data in order, right, and being able to understand the data, analyze the data. Digitalization to me means making processes, and then digital transformation would be the full impact or outcome of those first two steps, so that we're using data and on automated platforms to really reinvent the what it is that we're doing in procurement. We actually did some analysis recently here at ISM, and we're looking at in the source to settle process. We typically identify 37 discrete steps in the source to settle process, and we think 4 technologies in particular, the procure to pay platforms that are already out there, RPA, machine learning, and the Internet of Things, over in a little bit longer time horizon, will mean that essentially all but 8 or 9 of those discrete tasks will be automated. And humans will end up doing only the most important things, like stakeholder management and supplier relationship management, things that can only happen in a conversation between two people.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's going to be those soft skills that really galvanize our profession and make us sort of step out into the future. And I really see our role into the future as being the center of this vast network of, fully e-enabled, but commercial relationships. And when the data is pointing in different directions and the computers don't know what to do, we can sort of step in and resolve the issues. And I guess that's one reason why I'm really... Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I when you think about it, that's exactly where the value add is for our profession, right? It's in managing that ecosystem and identifying the risk and dealing with the risk. So, to my mind, this is actually quite exciting. This is not about what am I going to, am I going to lose armies of former procurement analysts and reduce employment. No, that's not the case at all. We're going to be focusing on the things that really matter to the company.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I see this as the next moonshot opportunity for procurement. I was around in the late 90s when we started with reverse auctions and e-procurement platforms and collaborative buying hubs. And really, like you said, we've sort of haven't had that innovation wave for a while. So I'm looking at this as sort of in the first time in 20 years, we've got a moonshot opportunity to really make a difference and grab hold of some of this technology. I guess, the question I want to ask you is, do we have the skills? I know that the recent Deloitte CPO survey said that only 6% of CPOs possess the strategic leadership trait of being able to lead digital and analytical transformations. What do you think?
Well, there certainly are some clear examples of people who are leading the way and sort of blazing the path for the rest of the profession. But I would also say that there's a lot of discomfort, maybe is the way to put it, and people don't really understand the technologies that we're talking about, and they don't necessarily have the in-house skills. A really interesting example right now is, and this is the technology that's being piloted in between 30 and 40% of most large companies, according to research that we've done, and that's robotics process automation. And most people don't even understand what that term means, because they think it means some robot like from Lost in Space, when we're actually talking about software code. And the code kind of fits in the gap between systems. So imagine your ERP system and maybe your spend analytics tool and some other systems that you're using, and we're typically trying to build reports by extracting data from these disparate sets of data, putting them in a data warehouse or a data lake, and then doing some analysis there and running reports. And RPA can actually automate most of that work. So a human doesn't have to go in and identify the data. RPA is really good at doing routine, highly defined processes. Well, that frees us up. Instead of spending half our day just getting the data and doing the data cleansing, right? Now we're actually spending most of our time on where the value add is and understanding the insights, the implications. How do we change our strategy? What do I have to adapt to? What do I need to be alert to? So to me, that's the real opportunity.
It is, to get us out of that back room that everyone's been complaining about, out of that sort of transactional malaise, if you like, and into the sort of strategic stratosphere, a seat at the table, what we've all been talking about. There's been a lot of interest within ISM on this digital story, hasn't there? I mean, I know that I couldn't get into some of the sessions at ISM 2018 in the digital track.
Yeah, I think it's people, they know they need to be educated because they know it's coming, so you can't avoid it. And so you have to get as smart as you can about what is coming and what are the implications and how our roles are going to evolve. So we have tremendous demand for anything that we can publish on these topics. And our role as a professional society is to advance the practice of the profession. So this is one of the areas we're really focused on right now, is getting as much information out to the profession as we can on the coming wave of technology.
So there are those people, as always in life, that are out there trying to educate and learn, but there really still are some risk-averse CFOs, and I guess that's their nature, and also CPOs who are sort of holding back from taking the plunge. How do you think, we can overcome that, and how could someone sell the benefits of going down a digital transformation to people who are a bit concerned?
To me, one of the areas that one of the biggest payoffs, even for the most risk-averse CPO, is using digital technologies to kind of visualize the risk in your supply chain. I mean, Flex does an amazing job with its Pulse Center of allowing, they have a footprint in something like, well over 100 countries, and they have something like 60,000 suppliers that they're managing. So they can visualize all that, and if a factory has a fire in Malaysia, they see that right away on the screen, and they can immediately react to it and redirect their supply chain in order to respond to that event. So that risk-averse CPO, there are very good technologies right now that can help you be responsive into disruptions in your supply chain. I would focus that there. I mean, I've always used this. I've been impressed by this story that I heard one time from a publicly traded pharmaceutical company in the United States. They did a risk analysis, and they said anything less than $1 million in spend is so small it's immaterial, we won't even look at it. Well, it turns out they had $200,000 in spend on a coating for a consumer medication, and that supported $2 billion worth of annual sales. And that plant did have a fire in Japan, was going offline for 9 months, and they were at risk of losing $2 billion in sales. So, I mean, if that doesn't get the board's attention, the CEO's attention, I don't know what will. So I would apply those technologies in risk, because that's where the immediate payoff would be.
And I guess to your point, there are so many game-changing technologies available. As we look at Industry 4.0, there's AI, cognitive, augmented reality, Internet of Things, which is a big bucket, 3D printing, robotic process automation, RPA, blockchain. What's capturing your interest, or what do you think will have the most traction for our profession in the short term?
Well, I've already mentioned RPA, so I won't dwell on that. But I do think that's near term, and it's will have an immediate impact in the next 12 to 18 months. I think that is real and it's happening. The Internet of Things is going to be transformative for our profession as well. We have all these connected devices now, and we'll become managers as much of flows of information as we are today of the movement of goods and services through the economy. So it'll be, information will travel with physical product. We'll have information about the customer, information about where it was manufactured, financial information associated with that order or that batch, quality data associated with that order or that batch. And that will definitely have a premium on people with good analytical skills who can assess data sets, identify patterns and issues, and react and respond to those that require their attention. That's going to be a different set of skills than is predominant today in the profession.
Well, I think that's a great place for us to wind up today's conversation, Tom. Thank you so much for your comments, and I really look forward to our next conversation.
These are so fun for me. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you for listening to our Tuesdays with Tom podcast, powered by Procurious and ISM. Stay tuned for more podcasts in this series, which will be made available for streaming in the learning area on procurious.com.